Hello, it's Danelle with Omega Financial and John Storbeck, President and founder of Omega Financial, here to tell you about his personal experience and thoughts regarding the Boston Marathon.
Thanks, Danelle. Appreciate your kind introduction. I thought it would be a little informative to give someone a little history of the marathon and how it came to mean so much to the people of Boston and why it affected the city so much beyond what we read in the headlines. The marathon history dates back to 490 BC when, as legend has it, the Athenian army defeated the Persian army on the plain of Marathon, which is about 25 miles away from the city of Athens. A Greek soldier by the name of Phidippides, allegedly, as the legend goes, ran the entire distance from the plain of Marathon back to the Athenian city where people were eagerly awaiting the results of the battle, and he said, "Rejoice, we conquer," and he fell dead. The marathon as an event didn't really exist until 1896 when the Olympics were brought back to Athens and the world decided to resurrect the concept of the Olympics, and they decided to hold uh, a marathon run to commemorate Phidippides' run so many centuries ago. So they had a race from the plain of Marathon to the Olympic Stadium in Athens, and to the great joy of the Athenian people, a Greek shepherd by the name of Spiridon Lewis actually won the marathon and crossed the finish line with the two Greek princes running with him. This inspired a real wave of joy among the Greek people, as you might imagine. A group of citizens, civic leaders from Boston, had attended the 1896 Olympics, and they thought that it would be a great idea to resurrect the marathon as an event in the city of Boston, and they figured that Patriots Day, which back then was always celebrated on April 19th, would be an appropriate day to do it. So in 1897, they had the first Boston Marathon, run mostly on dirt roads, run through the countryside, and they decided to have the race start in one place and end at another so as many people as possible could come out to see it. The distance was at about 25 miles. There was no fixed distance for it at that time. That changed in the 1908 Olympics when, because of sicknesses in the family, the royal family wanted to have their kids see the start of the race, which would end at the Olympic Stadium. So they backed up the start of the race to Windsor Castle, and later measured it as 26 miles, 385 yards. King George V saw the excuse me King Edward VII saw the race begin. His son, who became King George V, also saw the start of the race, and his grandchildren, who ironically enough turned out to be King Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne for the Duchess of Windsor, and his brother, who became King George VI, the father of Queen Elizabeth. So the historical ties to that event are still there. After that, between 1908 and 1972, there really were no Olympics. There were no competitive events for the marathon other than the Olympics and the Boston Marathon, and the Boston Marathon became pretty much a a phenomenon because it was the only uh, major marathon that was held every year and drew worldwide attention and people coming from all over the world. That changed in 1972 when Frank Shorter won the Olympic marathon in Berlin, and after that, marathons began to proliferate everywhere and influenced a lot of people, including me, to get involved in marathon running that never really had thought that much about it before. So it has a special place in Boston. It has a place in Boston more pronounced than any other city because of the history, because it ties the city together. Everybody's happy. I was privileged enough to run in 3 Boston marathons. Went back there and saw hundreds of thousands of people. In 1978, 2 million people came out to line the course from Hopkinton through the cities of Natick and Framingham and Wellesley to cheer on the runners, and actually line the course from one end to the other for 26 miles. Everybody was happy, everybody was proud of the civic accomplishment, and the whole city of Boston turns out for the Boston Marathon, which was why this bombing was particularly hurtful and had more of an effect in Boston than it would have in any other city. That said, the bombing, when it occurred, could have been much worse. The bombs went off about 4 hours and 9 minutes after the race began, and the official finishing time is still there for 4 hours. In 1978, when I ran in the race, 4,000 people had finished by the time 4 hours had elapsed. And so if the bomb had gone off an hour earlier, it would have created much more in the way of a human toll, and many more people would have been killed or injured than were injured when it actually did go off. And one last note about the race. Uh, this is what I look like in the 1978 Boston Marathon, which was 50 pounds ago. And in a case of being born, I guess, too late, my finishing time of 2 hours and 30 minutes and 41 seconds would have won the race as recently as 1952, but alas, 26 years later, only got me a finish of 174th. Thank you for listening to the narrative. I hope I've explained why the race was so important to the people of Boston, and why something like this I hope never occurs again.
Thank you so much, John.